So team, welcome all. Welcome to ITeLearn, another free orientation session. This session focusing primarily on performance testing and what do we look at in terms of when we do a performance testing on any given applications. How to be a performance test engineer, what are some of the popular tools and so on. This is the topic that we're really going to debate and discuss a little bit on. I have my co-presenter along with me, Uday. Uday, welcome.
Thanks, Karthik.
Great. So Uday, so let's get started quickly through the slides. But before we get started, why don't you give us all, again, an audience, a quick introduction about yourself, and that will set a good platform for us to move forward with the remaining sessions.
Sure thing, Karthik. Again, a warm welcome to everyone. Myself, I'm Uday. I do carry 8 years of experience totally into software testing, and predominantly 7.5 years predominantly into automation, test automation. So that's a small and a brief introduction of mine. So Karthik.
Awesome. Thanks, Uday. So folks, thank you all once again for joining the session, and primarily most of you who's going to be viewing this video offline. The intent or the agenda that we're trying to look at in this whole webinar is to introduce you to performance testing. If you have really not got that in-depth idea about what is involved into it, why it is important, what are you looking at in terms of a career opportunities, what tools are really getting popular in the market and so on, what are the skills or different concepts that one needs to acquire over a period of time, and that is all going to be presented as part of this agenda. So some slides are something that I would do, and some slides Uday will focus on, and we will move forward on this agenda. As you have questions, please feel free to use the chat to start posting your questions. We would love to start taking answers as and when we get an opportunity. But any questions, use the chat please to start putting your questions in there. So what really performance testing is, Uday, again, I will leave on to you to walk us through these couple of pictures and slides from here on, please.
Thanks, Karthik. So what is performance testing? Even before we understand what is performance testing, let's try to understand what performance is all about. If you could see that picture over there, you can see an elephant on a ball. So what we try to portray here is the performance of the ball, whether it can withstand the elephant, the weight of the elephant. In a similar way, if you look at the real-time examples in the software world, we have many. Just to take one, in our day-to-day life, we'll be using many applications, and for most of the folks, Facebook has been a DNA. And can anyone just imagine how many number of clicks will be there on a particular page of a Facebook at a particular time? That's nothing but you are subjecting Facebook. It's nothing but there are, say, hundreds, thousands, and even beyond that, concurrent users. When I say concurrent users, I'm talking about the number of hits on a particular page on Facebook at a particular point. It's nothing but we are subjecting Facebook to load, and we are checking how and we are expecting a response from the Facebook. So what is the performance of the Facebook? If at all, if you look at the application's performance, Facebook's performance, it's nothing but how it's reacting back to the users. It can be one user, it can be 1,000 users, or it can be 10,000 users, or it can be 1,000,000. But how does the application behave is nothing but the performance of the application. When I say how does the application behave, I'm talking about the response times, whether you're getting your page loaded within the anticipated time, or else there's a significant delay in the page load. You're able to see you're able to see and use all the features of the application. So these are all the aspects which will be considered to decide the performance of an application like Facebook. Not only Facebook, there are n number of e-commerce sites which basically talks about like where we need to talk about performance. So if at all, and one more thing we need to concentrate when we talk about performance of an application is that not only applications like Facebook, which does demand a continuous and constant behavior in responding to the users, but also there are some sites like e-commerce sites. Let's say tomorrow is Thanksgiving Day. What happens? We can see a lot of offers, and we can see a lot of people going online and browsing the sites like Amazon.com or something else, where the traffic will be high. So there could be spikes in the traffic on a day-to-day basis. You might not expect that much of traffic on the applications, but when a special occasion is there, or when some festival or some offers are running, then we can expect more traffic on the applications. So not only the regular traffic that we talk in case of applications like Yahoo, Facebook as such, but also we need to consider the traffic or the spikes in the traffic for sites like e-commerce sites, Amazon, etc. So going back to discuss about the performance, as I said before, performance is nothing but the behavior of the application when the application is subjected to load, and load in my terms would be huge amount of data. Like say for example, you're trying to upload a picture of 1 GB, which ideally cannot be possible, but if you're trying to at least upload a picture of 10 MB in Facebook, what happens? You can see a considerable amount of delay in the page load. So that's how we calculate the performance. So the behavior of the application under specific loads. And Karthik, you want to add something?
Yeah, so again, primarily the intent is you cannot build something that is designed to handle, for example, the weight of a mouse and expect an elephant to be able to ride on that ball. So the peak performances that you need to look at, there are concurrent users you need to look at, there are load times you need to look at, there is overall traffic, and how many people are trying to commit into transactions, right, Uday?
Pretty much, got
the e-commerce pages.
Yeah. And not only completing the transaction, but even you initiate the transaction, it might reflect on the performance. So validating the performance is nothing but your performance testing, and we do have many. Say if you look at the current slide, we talk about many measurement areas or else many metrics which we focus on while doing the performance testing. So what are the different metrics that we can, basically we'll be concentrating on all or some of these metrics that you could see on this particular slide. So it can be a memory use which we might focus. When we say memory use, it's the amount of physical memory available to process on a computer. Or else it can be the throughput. Throughput is again the rate at which a computer or a network receives the requests at data per second. So likewise, there are n number of metrics that you can see. It can be the memory pages per second, which is nothing but the number of pages written or read from the disk, in order to resolve the hard page faults. And page fault is again, it's something like the fault pages which are processed by the processor. Likewise, there are n number of metrics, not that we will be considering each and every metric while doing the performance testing, but yes, most of them will be considered. So Karthik, can we move on to the next slide?
Sure.
So what is it? When we talk about performance testing, we talk about different performance testing types. We talk about capacity planning. Capacity planning is something that, what is the capacity of the application, like how much of load it can withstand. And most of the times we talk about load in terms of number of concurrent users. When I say number of concurrent users, in blunt terms, it's nothing but number of simultaneous hits on the application on a particular transaction or a particular page or a particular feature. So the next one is volume testing. It's nothing but, as I said before, the example I have quoted while talking about the performance testing in the previous slide, I did pick the example of uploading a 10 MB photo or a 10 MB pic onto Facebook, while it can withstand, say, 1 or 5 MB of size. So volume testing is nothing but subjecting the application to huge amounts of volume, a large amounts of data, and checking back the application behavior. So whether it can withstand that particular amount of or particular volume of data, or else how the system is behaving back. Does it throw an error which is expected? Likewise, we talk about in terms of data. And then comes the stress testing. And again, stress testing is a buzzword in the area of performance testing, in the world of performance testing. So what is this stress testing all about? And again, we talk about the load here. But the thing is that when we talk about stress testing, we subject the application under test with loads from the peak. When I say peak, let's say an application can withstand 1,000 users, 1,000 concurrent users. We start our testing from 1,001. And we start on increasing from there the loads. And we give the load, say, 2,000 at a particular point. And we check how the application is behaving. So in an ideal case, the application should throw an expected error, or else if the application gets crashed, I'm just repeating again, if the application is getting crashed, there will be a mechanism to mitigate that risk. Is that mechanism again getting invoked, like a backup server? So this has to be performed as a part of the stress testing. If you look at, I can quote you an example, like late last year, we have a turned on, or else the application got shut down when it came to Amazon for almost 2 hours. So what is the impact on Amazon as a company if it happens? So the shutdown is basically happened because of the number of concurrent users is beyond the capacity of which it can withstand. So basically there's a glitch in the requirements or the understanding of the team which did gather the requirement, saying that the number of concurrent users, let's say for example, is 1,000. That's what they could get, they could arrive at that number from the market research or analysis, but it went beyond that and the application got crashed, and the recovery mechanism didn't invoke or get initiated right in place in time, so it got shut down for 2 hours. Can you imagine the impact? The stocks went down. So there's a considerable risk of loss of reputation and also business. So that's where performance testing plays a significant role. And then load testing. Load testing is also, as the name says, it's increasing the loads, but within the capacity. Let's say if for example, if an application does withstand 1,000 users, we'll start with 100, then increase it to 200. Uniformity will be there in the increase of the loads, and we'll check the application behavior. And the stability as well does come under the it's a combination of load and stress testing, and we have something called endurance, which does come into picture here. So when we talk about endurance or stability testing, we are talking about the application behavior under increasing loads for longer periods. So for longer periods, if you are checking the application behavior by increasing the loads, we are talking about stability testing. And spike testing is something like we are abruptly or had categorized it into different buckets. So those are a few categories that does come under the umbrella of performance testing. It seems that's it. Karthik, can we fix it?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. My session dropped for a few seconds. Not in the recording, but people would see it happening when they are playing the video. So in the video should be fine, but only in the live webinar you'll see that's happening. All right. So going back to the slide. So have we completed with this slide, Uday?
Yeah, pretty much, Karthik.
All right. So, and I think the intent is to try and give a viewpoint for the audience as to what is involved as best practices or process or the different tools and concepts that are needed to be used and applied on a daily basis as part of a performance test engineer's role. So to perform, for example, a capacity planning, how would you structure and do it? How would an individual who is regarded as a performance test engineer look at a stability testing? What would happen on that? So that is the key output that is very important for the entire thing. Right, Uday?
Yes, Karthik. You're right, I said it.
And I think that is exactly is also being presented in this slide where we're talking about how we assign goals to different phases of the entire process of testing and how we go about constantly revisiting, tuning it, and making sure that we're gradually improving the overall performance of the application as part of it.
Yes, Karthik, pretty much. It does talk about the different phases that are involved in performance testing. It starts with identifying the objectives. So what is a primary objective? Is that, you're testing it for the capacity it can withstand, or else you have a limited number of users versus an open application like Facebook or Amazon. Likewise, you just identify the objectives, and these objectives are derived from the performance testing requirements. When I say performance testing requirements, again a point to be noted here is not only the requirements gathered on the functional areas or the features of the application, but also they are gathered on the non-functional areas like performance testing, usability testing as well. So the objectives here will be derived from your requirements, performance testing requirements. Once you identify the objectives, the next step would be identifying the key scenarios. So when we are talking about the transactions earlier, the transactions are the scenarios does route back to the same. And the example can be taken here is, if at all, if you want to make a transfer of funds on a banking application, would be one transaction. Or else buying something on an e-commerce site. You start from the moment you start, browsing and checking out and paying. All these three can be considered as one single scenario, and at times if the scenario is huge or big, you can divide it into multiple scenarios as well. So once you define the scenario, you need to identify what's the workload that it can withstand, and again it does route back to the requirements again. And then you identify the metrics. We did see a couple of metrics in the earlier slides, like throughput, responses per minute or per second, and fall page likewise. So what are the metrics that are apt for this particular application or for this particular scenario in this particular context is identified. And then we start writing our test cases, and we simulate the load using the tools, and then we analyze the result. And the key of all of these activities is the first one, performance requirement gathering, and the second place goes to the analysis. The result analysis is again a key area. So again, the cycle goes, it revolves until we fine tune the application to the expected level. Karthik, would you like to add something here?
No, again, as I said, it's all about identifying what is required at what phase, knowing the depth of each stages of this process, and how you go about executing it. And I think this encompasses what kind of a daily routine or weekly routine that every performance test engineer goes through, be it with tool or without tools. Tools eventually will help us to do the same process more efficiently, more accurately, and it helps us to get better at what we're doing eventually. But the core for every testing domain or every testing area is the process. How do you go about executing a given activity? And the depth to which we have to get into each of the spaces is what is very critical. And I think what we've listed here is basically those different tools that are available in the market. And again, some tools have become popular just because of different factors. But this kind of graph is saying that depending on the cost of the tools and the complexity of the requirements, you will see right from the open source to the enterprise level, there are varied tools. Then there are boutique tools, which is very customized to create some additional frameworks or plugins or adapters that serve small purposes here and there. But overall, what you're looking at is on the right side is the list of different available tools in the market. Some of them are open source, some of them are strong licensed tools, but each have a specific need. And what you look at primarily, the two most popular ones today in the market is very obvious. One is the LoadRunner tool from HP. The second is the JMeter tool. While the tools come out of the box with their own set of features that help in the entire activity of various phases of performance testing, the level of implementation, customization, and scripting is what will decide as to how you apply it. And that is where it is very critical. When you go into the market, they may ask you that, hey, do you know LoadRunner? And if your answer is yes, then the next quick question could be, how would you rate yourself on LoadRunner overall on a scale of 1 to 10? And that basically tells you the confidence as how much have you used it, or how deep do you know about these tools and how you could quickly apply it. I think that is what the market will look at. So, Uday, anything that you wanted to add additionally onto this?
You did cover pretty much, Karthik, except for the fact, like, along with that, one point I would like to add is every tool does come up with a set of pros and cons, and it's the context, and it's again a context-driven scenario as of which tool to be picked. If it's a complex application, and as the cost increases, and if the client is ready to, or your organization is ready to bear that cost, yes, it's better to go for a better tool.
Correct. And I think you're absolutely right, the pros and cons. So every tool has its own set of out-of-the-box pros and cons as to what is it expensive, is it more technical, how user-friendly it is, what is the feature list, and so on. And I believe this session is a little short to really dive deep into those, but very critical that we know at the end of our entire training program as to what tools can be used where. Eventually, despite what factors they come with, it is the implementation that will decide a longer run as to how effective those tools are being used at.
Very true, Karthik.
Thanks, Uday. So primarily, again, this slide is talking about how does software performance testing help someone in the quality assurance and software testing field. Who is it really for? What is it? So here is my take, and I'm sure there'll be some people who will who may not agree with what I'm saying. But my take is, number one, while it is for software testing professionals, I believe it is a more specialized skill, unlike functional testing. So when I say this, what I mean is that it's a very niche and a specific market in QA world. It is not built for everyone. So if you're someone who's just entering into software testing, if you're someone who's at an absolute beginner level, I would not recommend you to get or jump into performance testing right away. This would be more like a next level or step 2. Alternately, if you are keen in this area, then you should give a focused approach for about 2-3 months of rigorous training before you get into that field. And again, there are 2 reasons why I will tell you this. While the UI functionality of an application is critical, performance of any given application is also extremely critical. The worst thing that you want to see is that your website has gone down, the servers have died, or users are not able to log into the application. So the criticality that can come out of a performance failure can have more repercussions than what will happen at a functional or a UI level. If a functionality fails, then we know that only specific area is affected, only those users are having issues on that functionality. But if the load is high or the stress is high and the application goes down because of it or breaks down completely, then we have a much more bigger problem. So what that means is the roles are critical. It is a very specialized market. There are much fewer jobs compared to functional or UI testing. But again, it is a absolutely in-demand tool forever. It's an evergreen field. There's no question about it. So if you're serious about building a career into it, then yes. But the advantages is also that there are lesser players in it. You won't see there are, let's say there are 100 jobs that are there currently in software testing. You will not see that there are 80 jobs on performance testing and there are 800 people applying for it. You will rather see that there are 15-20 jobs on performance testing and there are about 50-60 people applying for it. So the ratios are more balanced for it. Definitely the pay scale, the pay rate is higher than what you would see for a functional or an automation test engineer. There is more stability and growth in what you do because once you get into a project, start executing a role and you prove yourself, you will continue to evolve in the project. So changes to that really don't happen overnight. So there's more reliance on what you do, what role you play, also because it's very critical. So that is my strong belief on how you look at performance testing as a career. This is the previous slide, just going back. Uday, anything that you wanted to add on it?
Karthik, you did pretty much cover it. When we look at the third point here, we did point out saying niche market in QA. Yes, it's a niche scale, but the fact is that there's a huge demand because the lack of finding the right candidates or the potential candidates. The thing is that there will be, as Karthik, as you said, there will be 15-20 job postings and there will be a turnout of 50-60, but still there's a huge gap over there. What I mean to say is, are those 15-20 positions getting filled up?
Yeah.
And to answer that, it's a no. So there's a huge area of opportunity, what I can say, provided if you are equipped well with that skill set.
True, absolutely.
And that does come with your interest, commitment, and your expertise and experience that you gain over a period of time. Like as Karthik said, if you are just entering into this and if you want to pursue this as a career, maybe you would be needing some 2 months tenure with a lot of commitment again.
Okay. And listen, here's what I would say, right? For example, if I put an opening for a QTP or a Selenium, all right, let's say I have 5 openings. I will get 50 resumes within a day's time. And I know for sure that I will not be able to evaluate everyone. The first come, first serve. But if I put a job posting for 2 performance test engineers, I might get 5 profiles the first day. And so it is more selective, yes. And as you said, I can, or probably at ITeLearn, we could train someone on a QTP or Selenium or even manual testing and get them job ready in, let's say, 3 weeks time or 4 weeks time. But for performance testing, I would like people to spend at least 2 months before they start applying. And the reason is, 1, it's critical roles. 2, there is more things to learn and focus on it. But at the same time, there is a better return on investment at the end of 2 months. For example, if someone having to decide between a career, why does someone want to get into an SAP rather than a core Java or .NET programming? And the reason is we believe that it is a more focused area. And I think those are the factors that people need to look at. So please, the message is very simple. Do not look at performance testing as, hey, let's add this also onto resume. It will be good to have. But be more focused towards it. Give it the effort. It will pay out eventually in the long run. So here are a quick job trends to show you from Indeed.com again as to how the job market is all about. If you look at, you will see that performance testing has been very steady overall for the last 6-7 years. It has not been a significant growth. If you see, it's been a very steady growth. That is performance test engineer as a keyword. If you look at the same for load runner as a keyword, again, the market has been good. It has been very steady. It has not really taken off in the recent history. So it has maintained itself. It is not something that has been more recent in the market. These things have been there for a very long period of time. But now, if you look at a JMeter, it is more of an upcoming thing. This is the trend. This is where the market is trying to get more towards. Because of various factors, because of the licensing, the ease of use, the skills that it brings, and so on. But also that people are embracing newer features as things get along. But again, to a tool-to-tool comparison, Uday, I think it will be great to do some kind of a session sometime down the line, LoadRunner versus JMeter, and see how these tools are different. But
Karthik, yes, we do have that as one concept that we'll be covering as a part of our course, and we'll be working on both LoadRunner and JMeter, which will when we walk through the course content, the participants will get a better idea. And to add a point here, if you could see the trends between JMeter and LoadRunner, it's not that LoadRunner is dropping down or has rather I would say, as Karthik said, it's a steady growth and it's constant. The big players in the market or the big players in the industry, the LoadRunner is there for them. They always opt for LoadRunner because of its robustness, or because of the features that it does give, or because of the analysis part. And JMeter, basically, it's an open source and does come with a free license.
Yep.
So that's where you can see the upcoming trend in JMeter, because small players and medium players are opting JMeter. They are also looking at, see, previously it's like a game being played by only the big players. Like, say, if I'm looking at IBM as an organization and Amazon as a website, like which does as an e-commerce website. Yes, LoadRunner is there for that scenario where you can go for this performance testing. But if you look at small applications or medium-sized organizations or medium applications, when I say now that they are looking towards performance testing of that also, where it's not the case earlier. Okay. In this case, JMeter predominantly is taking over the market. So yes, there is a demand, and it's a continuous demand in LoadRunner, and yes, there's an increasing trend for JMeter as well.
Perfect. No, well said, Uday. Thank you so much. And I think That is the reason it is critical to probably learn both tools. Again, I don't believe that in this 2 months or 6 weeks program, one would be able to master both the tools, but they will create the foundation, the strong base from where they can launch and spend the next few months in the road of mastering these tools. Again, from a salary standpoint, we have a quick trends analysis. Again, 89 at performance testing, 86 at LoadRunner, 94 at JMeter, because it's more current, more relevant, and so on. Sorry, I moved on to the next slide. I wanted to quickly focus on what we're looking at in the training as well, because most of the questions will be coming from that area, from the audience. So here is the kind of what would one look at as a prerequisite and what would be good to have before you get into the training. Uday?
Yeah, Karthik, thanks for that. So there are two things here which we need to concentrate. As Karthik said earlier, if you are a part of the software testing team, or else if you are already a software test engineer and if you want to move on to performance testing, yes, it's a right move. But if you are jumping into this without any prior knowledge or without being a software test engineer, what you need to have is the basic prerequisites is basic computer knowledge and some software testing concepts as well. And good to have is basic SQL skills, scripting, and awareness of web architecture. So when I say good to have, yes, if you have these, it will help you for sure for a better understanding all through the sessions. But if you don't have it, yes, we will be touching upon these as well during the course. But again, I'm routing back to the statement that Karthik had given earlier. It could be during the course or it could be after the course. You need to work on it. All depends upon how much you are spending your time in working on the projects. So that decides, that helps you out to be an expert on the tool, and it does come over a period of time. It can be 1 month or 2 months.
Right, and I think mastery is something that you gain through practical experience. What we're trying to build here is create the platform through which you can start in that road. You can get your platform laid. And I believe even if people do not have the good to have skills that we just looked at, it is still fine just because of the fact that you will definitely need to put in a little bit more efforts to get there. It will take probably a little bit more practice and efforts at your end to get to that level. So I quickly opened up, just conscious of the fact that we have a few more minutes left before we get into Q&A. So Uday, at a high level, I believe here is a list of contents that we're looking at. I don't really want you to dig deep into the description part of it, but just the topic, the column B, and quickly go through what we're seeing.
Yeah, as a part of the course, we'll be touching upon, we'll try to understand what performance testing is and how the life cycle goes on, and what are the different tools that are there in the market, and we'll move on to LoadRunner. We'll help you to install the LoadRunner, and then we'll look at the components and protocols that it does support. And Vugen is again a component of LoadRunner. There are 3 components which like primarily categorized into, and we'll look at what Vugen is. We'll try to understand, and we'll be working on a project as well parallelly. And we will be trying to understand, like we'll focus on transactions, checkpoints, parameterization, and correlation. And controller is one more component which will help us to add monitors. And the other component as well we have, Karthik, can you go down?
Yes.
And the third part is the analysis, as I said before. You know, it does take a predominant stake on the overall tool. So analysis is again a key area. We'll be focusing on that as well. And then we'll be looking upon the Performon and Performance Center overview. Performon is again, it does talk about, it's nothing related to LoadRunner, but we'll be touching upon it. And then we'll move on to JMeter, a brief introduction of JMeter, and how to create the test plan, what a test plan is in JMeter, what are threads, assertions, and how to, we have listeners to view the results, and how to add a listener. That stuff we'll be looking at. And we'll be working on a project as well. The project B talks about a different project which we'll be working as a part of learning JMeter for performance testing, and at the end we'll be looking at the database test plan as well. So this is in brief the content which we had published for now, but this will be tweaked a little bit, and this will be enhanced. Rather, let me say this. This will be enhanced, and depending upon the participants' requests, maybe a couple of concepts might be added on the fly. Over to you, Karthik.
All right, great, awesome. So, and I think this is a good starting point. We wanted to take the audience feedback also and see if we could incorporate more into the course content overall. So, what I wanted to do is get this session started, get the audience oriented towards performance testing overall. And when we get into the day 1, day 2 demo sessions, we will dig deeper into the exact course content that will be coming along. And at that time, we can get deeper into it. So some of the questions that I wanted to quickly see if we could answer, I'm sure some were answered as we went along, and see what it is. So are there any specific questions, Uday, from here that we can look at and start answering? But team, again, once again, all the videos will be hosted back on our website at itelearn.com. You can watch this video there. You can also look at adding comments as your questions and continue to get answers. But I think most of these answers have come in, but are we talking SOAP UI and its capabilities similar to being LoadRunner in any of these sessions?
No, Karthik. SOAP UI again will help us to do the load testing or the performance testing when it comes to the web services.
All right. What kind of scripting languages are we looking at?
So a basic command or else a basic knowledge in C. If you have a good command in C, it will work, and basics of Java will help you a lot when it comes to the scripting languages.
So, for example, ITeLearn, we already have hosted core Java tutorials. If members have access to the core Java tutorials prior to getting deeper into this, will it help?
That's perfect.
Okay.
That will pretty much help them.
Yeah, just a thought that I got while we were talking about this now. So what course should a beginner look at? Is there something that they should do prior to starting LoadRunner? Do you think a combination of manual testing and let's say core Java is a good starting point?
Absolutely said that. But the manual testing course does give the testing concepts and awareness of what testing is all about, so that the performance testing can be well understood. And yes, the core Java concepts will help them while scripting.
All right. And the LoadRunner full training, I believe what we will be doing, though the course content was really not expanded, is an end-to-end LoadRunner training as well as part of this, correct?
Yes, Karthik, rightly said.
All right. Let's see. Can developers shift to performance testing? Is that a question that you could answer?
Can developers shift to performance testing? Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Provided, as I said, like if they meet the prerequisites. If you are into a .NET platform, maybe you need to get brushed up your skills with Java, basics of Java or core Java. As Karthik said, you can go to the site and pick up the core Java tutorials. And I think from the testing.
Yeah, and I think there's a definite edge that a developer could bring, especially to such skills or even automation tools and so on, because they come from that background. They have a new perspective to it. So I believe testing is an open world. We get different participations from various areas. You definitely, being a developer, have the SDLC background. You've done unit testings. You also have developed things with performance in mind. So when you get into the actual testing of it, I think it's a great shift that I would recommend to people if they're interested.
Very true.
Okay, let's see. I am trying to run with the clock and see what else I could take quickly. As a performance engineer, is it expected to have knowledge of database tuning? Database
That will
tuning?
be taken care. That will be taken care when we talk about the performance testing in detail during the course. Not to worry.
I did see one of your topics focusing on that specific area. So
Yes, and Karthik, we did miss the question over there on the top. Kasif Jamal, he says that can JMeter gives
yeah.
It again depends, as I said before. JMeter does have an elements to write plugins and add that to the JMeter tool. It again depends upon how you tailor that. Okay,
Right.
but LoadRunner by default does have these features.
And I think that's the last question that had been asked by Kashif again. So there is a long question, and Fauzer also said that sorry about that there's a long question, but let's give it an attempt to see if we can answer this. Performance tester in real time, how will the tester ready to face unexpected loads at the holiday times? Testers have to pre-plan for situations, or they have to face the situation on that critical time. So yeah, I think how do we recreate some of these scenarios?
I pretty much got this question. I mean, the thing is that earlier we did discuss about the spikes of loads that we'll be doing during the spike testing, okay, where we'll be giving indefinite loads. And then again, the stress testing does talk about how the application behavior should be when an unexpected load is there on the system. So yes, we'll get prepared even before we launch the application. We do stress testing and the spike testing, which will definitely answer your question.
Awesome. Great. So I believe I could take this question from Usha. Yes, I think having 7 years in the QA experience will definitely help in performance testing. You see, and here's where I believe. So what are you going to do, Usha, in the next 5 years? Are you going to remain to be a manual test engineer who's a domain expert or a functional expert? Or do you also want to add a few tools to your portfolio? And that is where you could now decide if you want to do something like a QTP or Selenium or do a LoadRunner. If I were you, I would spend 6 months in trying to do both and then look at which area I will get my projects in now. Because you can never say that I want to stick with QTP and get trained on QTP and just focus on QTP. Since you're already working, you may rather get an overview, strong foundation laid on a few of these tools and then get to decide what. For me, I would say SOAP UI, QTP, Selenium, LoadRunner or JMeter. This would be the tools that you should definitely try and acquire. At least 2 out of them will be a good starting point for you. This is a question to you, Uday.
Can I apply performance testing with game testing? Yes, you can, because game testing is again an application. But if you ask me if there's a tool which can support with game, which tool, that details we'll not be going into. But from an application standpoint, yes, game testing is also combined with performance testing is also combined with game testing, because we do check the loads on the game as well.
Right. And I think this another question which is coming down the road, which is talking about mobile applications, performance testing. I believe a significant focus in today's world on performance testing for mobile apps, right?
Performance testing for mobile apps. Maybe during our training, we'll not focus much on mobile apps. We'll take a web application basically.
Okay.
But yes, that will help you to set the base for your mobile apps performance testing as well.
Sounds good. So we're not going to focus on mobile apps specifically as part of what we do, but it is a similar concept that you can approach once you get deeper into mobile testing, correct?
True.
Okay, Okay, when is the batch starts? So we will let you know on the training team quickly what kind of a scripting is needed, VB script or JavaScript. I would say either just a basic programming language or even a C or code Java is fine, or basic knowledge of scripting. That is what the essence is. Do you provide a server to work on licensed LoadRunner tool? I believe this is something that we can get to when we get into day one, but I am sure that there will be enough guidance on how you could do your practice at your end and so on. I don't believe there will be lab kind of a setup that you could log in and do it. It will be more of instructions that you would take to start practicing after installing at your end.
Just to add to that, yes, we can create a virtual lab, but not to the extent that we use in the real time.
And the challenge with virtual labs, Uday, very honestly, is what happens is with ITeLearn we get hundreds of participants. It is not
then.
So there's again a performance issue for performance testing labs. So, so I would love to do something, but again we will look at the optimal solution that will help the maximum audience. All right. 6 years experience in QA and automation, but I've never got a chance to work in performance QA, and I wish to. How can I get performance project if I have this training? So, Nijo, I think here's the thing. Primarily, what you're trying to do is learn a skill and go into the market and say, you know what, I know this skill. So, the person or people or organization who's hiring you is not taking a risk by getting someone fresher into it. Since you've been in the industry, and adding a little bit of performance experience onto your resume along with this training will really help you. I think this is the first step towards getting into performance testing. Eventually, you could talk about this entire training and how you've acquired it, what your skill is. That is how, when you get to the interview level, you'll be able to present yourself more confidently. I believe the last question we already did answer, and there are a few more questions, but again, time permitting, we could not continue with more questions, team. Once again, thank you so much. We are honored to have such a wide participants who join our sessions for these free webinars. Once again, thank you for your time, audience. Uday, thank you so much for providing your insight. Really appreciate it. And we would love to see the training sessions coming up soon.
Thank you, Karthik, and thank you, participants, for your time.
Thanks all. Thank you all. Take care. Have a nice weekend ahead. Bye then.